Welcome to long division of polynomials. We're going to use the box method today to divide polynomials using the idea of long division. So a little bit of reminder of some vocabulary. The quotient is your answer and it's on top of your division problem. The divisor, that's what you're dividing by and it's on the outside. The dividend, that's what you're dividing, and it's on the inside. And the remainder, that's what's left over after you divide. So in a division problem, here's your division bar. The answer that's on top is called the quotient. On the outside, the number is called the divisor. On the inside, that number is called the dividend. And then if you have a remainder that's left over, that's your remainder. Let's start out with a really simple long division problem from back when you were in grade school. So if you think back to the process you learned, you would see if 12 goes into 8. No, 12's too big. So then you would check to see, does 12 go into 87? And you go, yeah, it goes in there. Not evenly, but I can divide it. So you would take 87 and dividing by 12, and you get 7. And you would write that on top. Then your next step would be you would take what's on top and multiply it by the outside. So you would do 7 times 12 is 84. And you write it right there underneath. And hopefully you remember the next step. This is where you subtracted. So you took 87 minus 84 and you got 3. Well, you were hoping you were done, but you're not, because you bring down the next number. And you keep doing this over and over, repeating the process until you run out of numbers. So I'm going to start over. I'm going to divide 35 by 12. It goes in there 2 times. And we put the answer on top. 2 times 12 is 24. Then you subtract. 35 minus 24 is 11. And since there's nobody left to bring down, that's your remainder. And remember, up on top is your quotient. Now, you didn't write these like this when you were in grade school, but this is how you're going to write the answers today. You're going to take your quotient plus your remainder over your divisor. That's how we're going to write these. Now, if you look at this, this all had numbers. This was a math problem from back in elementary school. We are dealing with algebra 2, so we're going to have x's in our problem. So our problem's going to get a little bit more difficult with these polynomials, but same kind of idea. Well, after years of watching my students do long division, I found another way that I can do that which doesn't make as many mistakes. So I'm going to share that with you. It's called the box method. So here's how the box method works. You take your dividend, that's the thing that's going to be dividing, and you make sure it's in order from highest exponent all the way down to the number. So I've got cubed, squared, x to the first, and number. So first thing you do is you check to make sure he's in order. Then the other guy over here, we call him the divisor. That's the thing you're dividing by. He goes on usually the outside. You look at him, make sure he's in order. Highest exponent down to the lowest. Now, I'm going to go back to the dividend. He has 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So I'm going to make a box. And I'm going to make sure it has enough for 4 columns. Now this guy over here, he has 1, 2 terms for the divisor. So I'm also going to make sure that I have 2 rows. The divisor is going to go on the outside. So I've got x and minus 2. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the letter R on the last column. That stands for where the remainder is going to go. Now this starts out pretty easy. I start with my highest term. He's going to go in the first box. So 6x cubed. Now I have to do a little bit of using my brain now. I have 6x cubed in the box. What would I have multiplied x by up here to have gotten 6x cubed? In other words, what is 6x cubed divided by x? Well, 6 divided by 1 is 6, and cubed minus the little first power is x squared. So right here, I'm going to put the result of that division. Another way to think of it is, what could I times x by to get 6x cubed? Well, 6x squared times x would make 6x cubed. Then I take the 6x squared up there, I take him, and I'm going to multiply him by the bottom, which is a negative 2. So 6 times negative 2 is negative 12x squared. Now I want to move to my next column. So I look at who I have here. The squareds have to make negative 19. And if we look, I already have negative 12 of them. So to make negative 19, I need another negative 7x squareds. So these two numbers right here should add up to make that number. Negative 12 and negative 7 do make negative 19. And then I'm going to repeat my process. To find the number that goes up here on top, I've got negative 7x squared in the box and an x outside. So what times x would have given me negative 7x squared? Well, that would be negative 7x. Or I could have done negative 7x squared divided by x is negative 7, and squared divided by x is x. Either way, I would have gotten negative 7x. Now I gotta get to the bottom of the column. So negative 7x times negative 2, negative 7 times negative 2 is 14x. Go back up to my top. I want 16 x's in the box. I already have 14 of them. So I need 2 more x's. So 2x and 14x had better add up to 16x. And they do. And I'm going to keep repeating this process till I run out of boxes. So I've got 2x up here. Now I have to figure out what times x would give me 2x. Well, that would be the number 2. Or I could have done 2x divided by x is 2. Then I multiply 2 times negative 2. And I get negative 4. And then I look at my box up, or my number up here. I want to make -4. So -4 plus what would make -4? Well, 0. So the 0 and -4 had better add together to give me -4, and they do. Now here's the really cool thing. My answer is the quotient on top. My answer is going to be 6x squared minus 7x plus 2. Now my remainder was 0, so I don't have to write plus the remainder over the divisor. Here's my answer. Right about now, you're probably going, what on earth did you just do? Well, that's a good question. First thing I did is I started with drawing the box. So we have to have the box. This is 4 columns, because there's 4 terms, 2 rows, because there's 2 terms. Then I started with placing 6x cubed in the top box. And then this is where it gets really fun. I actually followed those same steps that we did in long division a moment ago. My first step was dividing 6x cubed by x and getting 6x squared. Here's where I did that at. Then I multiplied. Ooh, that was my next step, multiplying. I took 6x squared times -2, and that gave me -12x squared. Now this weird little thing here that I did, it was my subtraction. I said I need -19, but I have -12. That means I need -7 more. I technically subtracted. And then brought it down and repeated again over and over. So I'm going to show you some more examples of this, so we're going to get this down. Okay, now look at this guy. I have x squared, then x to the first, then the number. So this is 3 terms. I have x and then the number, and that's 2 of them. So this is 3 columns by 2 rows. So I'm going to start with my box. Three columns, 2 rows. My rows are going to have an x and a +1. And then I'm going to put the letter R for the remainder. And then I start with my first one goes in the first box. And now I'm going to divide. What times x makes x squared? Well, that's x. X times x is x squared. Then I'm going to multiply. I'm going to take x times 1, and that gives me 1x. And then remember, I want these 2 things to add up to this. So I want 3x. I have 1x. That means I need 2 more x's, because 1x plus 2x makes 3x. And then I repeat the process. I'm going to take and figure out what times x is 2x. Well, that's 2. 2 times x is 2x. Then we multiplied. We took 2 times 1 and we get 2. And now that we filled that column, we look and we say, whatever's on this diagonal, 2 and something have to add up to 5. 2 plus what makes 5? Well, 3. 2 plus 3 makes 5. And now that I've ran out of columns, I can write my answer. The answer is the top, the quotient, which is x plus 2. And I do have a remainder. I have 3. So I'm going to put plus 3, that's the remainder, over x plus 1. That's the thing that I divided by. There's my answer. Okay, right about now, maybe you're getting a little better at this. We're going to try another one. Okay, now I look at this guy, and I notice he's got x cubed, but he doesn't have an x squared, so it's like he has a 0x squared. He doesn't have an x in here, so it's like a 0x, and then he does have the number. Over here has x, and then it goes down a power to just the number. So technically my first guy, he has 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. Because he's got the x cubed, the 0x squared, the 0x, and the minus 1. Yes, those zeros are important. The other guy has 2 terms, the x and the minus 1. So when I draw my box, it's going to have 2 rows and 4 columns. Remember, you put your giant R up there for the remainder. And down the side goes your x minus 1. I start with my highest exponent. That goes in the box. And I divide. What times x is x cubed? Well, that's x squared, because x squared times x is x cubed. Then I multiply. X squared times negative 1 is negative 1x squareds. And then I figure out what goes in the next box. I want that to add up to how many x squareds? 0. And I have negative 1 of them, so negative 1 plus what makes 0? Well, 1. Is negative 1 plus 1 equal to 0? Yeah, it is. Then I repeat the process because I'm not at the last column yet. Here I go. What times x makes x squared? That'd be x. Because x times x is x squared. Then I multiply. X times negative 1 is negative 1x. And then I figure out what's going to go in the next box. I have negative 1x's plus what? And that's going to equal 0 x's. Well, negative 1 plus what makes 0? Well, 1x. Is negative 1 plus 1 equal to 0x? Yes, it is. Now I divide. What times x is 1x? Well, 1. Because 1 times x is 1x. Then I multiply. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. And then I figure out what my next number is going to be. I go, what's negative 1 plus what will make negative 1? Well, negative 1 plus 0 makes negative 1. And now that I'm in the R column for remainder, my remainder is 0. So I'm going to write my quotient, which is x squared plus x plus 1. And since my remainder is 0, I don't have to put him over the divisor. There's my answer. Now this makes a lot more sense when you practice this on your own. So what I'm going to give you is I'm going to give you the little polynomial puzzle to practice.